Hello, grappling fans. It's once again another episode of the Grappling Bulletin podcast. Myself, Howell Teague, joined today by Corey Stockton, again, up on the big table at the front. It's a nice view from here, right?
It is. It's much better than from back there, for sure.
Well, actually, this is kind of something in the works for a while, but apparently, we're going to be getting a new studio soon.
Maybe a nice little round table setup, or...
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, who knows what's going to happen. I had no idea what the design's going to look like, but I'm thrilled by the possibilities. Let's just say that. So, we had a good run, like the last approximately 3 years or so right here at this desk, but I'm ready for a change,
Yeah, moving on up.
Moving on up. Lots to talk about this weekend. Grappling Bulletin was a very, very busy busy weekend. I gotta say, a lot of jiu-jitsu that happened over the weekend. A lot of announcements. I think we should jump into the news first before we start recapping some of the biggest moments from the events of the weekend. We've got some great highlights and stuff for you. But let's start off with the news. Let's dive in on the breaking news, the latest news that's going on in the world of jiu-jitsu. And the big one is that we completed the announcement of our second division at the Who's Number One Championships, and this time we wrapped up the all 8 competitors for the 115-pound women's division. Yeah, this is pretty good, right?
This is huge news, and I don't think very many people predicted that final name that we released, right? So
Tammy Musumeci sliding right in there, right at the end of it.
She's been a little inactive since 2019 Worlds when she won 2019 Worlds.
That was her last match.
A reminder: she's a 3-time no-gi world champion and an ADCC bronze medalist.
There you go. So we've got the graphic. You can see it up on screen right now. This is the 8 competitors going from left to right. Top first, you've got Maisa Bastos, Jessica Crane, Danielle Kelly, and Jessica Khan. On the bottom row, Alex Wynn, Tubby Alaquin, Tammy Musumeci, and Grace Gundrum. So a very diverse array of styles. A bunch of different teams represented there. A number of Who's Number One veterans, as you can see. Maisa, Jessie, Danielle, Jessa, Alex, and Grace are all Who's Number One veterans. Amanda Alaquin, Tubby Alaquin, is a scrapper. She's got the style very much made for Who's Number One. We love watching Alaquin fight. She's a regular competitor on both IBJJF and Fight to Win circuit. And Tammy, as you mentioned, a world champion, a no-gi world champion, an ADCC medalist. Man, that's a pretty stacked lineup.
Yeah, and it was stacked before Tammy got in there, right, with a couple world champions on that list already. But I think Tammy really rounds it off, and she may have given Maisa a contention for the favorite there.
Well, see, I don't know, right? Because everybody's like, "Oh my God, Tammy's back," and I'm like, "Hey, this is really cool. I'm genuinely excited to see Tammy back." But she hasn't competed in over 2 years, and we've got a stacked lineup of young, hungry, very active competitors. And Tammy's coming, she's coming back as she's been balancing working full time as a lawyer. She hasn't been competing. There's maybe lost that rhythm a little bit. Of course, she's training with Mikey all the time, and I'm sure she's got access to the great techniques. And she's a hell of a competitor. But I don't know, man. This division is wide open for me. But the greatest thing about this division, is that 6 months ago, a year ago, this division never existed, right? Who would have thought we could gather 8 light featherweight no-gi women into making one of the best divisions of the entire tournament?
Exactly, and none of these women came from nowhere, right? They've been competing hard and competing often, but it's great to see that there's finally an outlet for them to show how talented they are. I think the women of this division often get kind of overlooked by maybe some bigger women, especially ADCC has 60 and 60 plus, right? And a lot of these girls are in the 50s. 135
pounds. Right. That's like 20 pounds over their weight class, right?
Exactly.
Well, very excited for that. That goes down on end of September here, Who's Number One Championships. So today we're actually announcing the first couple of names from the men's 185-pound division. And drum roll. So this morning we announced Craig Jones as the first competitor in that division. Now Ty Ruotolo, we can confirm that Ty Ruotolo is the second competitor here in the 185-pound division. And I don't think anybody is upset about the prospect of a potential rematch between Tai Ruotolo and Craig Jones, right?
Yeah, and maybe this shouldn't be much of a surprise to anybody. Tai has been looking just phenomenal in the 185-pound division all year, and it shouldn't come as a shock to anybody that somebody who is as dynamic, as explosive, as submission-oriented is going to be geared up in this tournament.
Yeah, both him and his brother Cade, they are tailor-made for the Who's Number One rule set. They are just non-stop balls of energy going out there for the kill. But, maybe a couple of months ago, I think that some people might have actually said, 185 is kind of a tough test, for somebody like Tai, who, was competed at 66 kilos at ADCC just a couple of years ago. But since then, I mean, even just his 15-minute match with Craig Jones a couple of months ago on Who's Number One goes to show that he is more than capable of going head-to-head with pretty much anybody that we can find and put in this 185-pound division, right?
Right, and there's not a person in the world who wouldn't want to see Craig and Tai go again, but I think no more than Tai Ruotolo himself.
Oh, yeah.
I think he learned a lot in that match, and if there's anything we know about Tai Ruotolo is he takes his lessons and he builds on them.
Well, stay tuned, because we're going to be announcing 2 names every day through to the end of the week. You've got Craig and Tai today, tomorrow 2 more names, Wednesday 2 more names, Thursday 2 more names, and that's going to be the case for the next couple of weeks, because next week we'll be doing the women's heavyweight division, and then the week after we'll be doing the men's heavyweight division. So it's just non-stop news here. Who's Number One?
Can you believe we still have 2 more divisions to go after this?
I mean, we've barely scratched 185. This is, we've already got, we got 18 athletes announced, and how many more to go?
Yeah.
A lot.
A lot more.
A lot. Super excited. Moving on. Okay. Through the news, Isaac Bayens is joining the IBJJF Middleweight Grand Prix. So this goes down in November, and this is an event that was announced a couple of weeks ago. So IBJJF will be hosting 2 4-man tournaments, a middleweight and a heavyweight bracket, and Isaac Bayens, an IBJJF world champion in the middleweight division, is now confirmed as the 2nd black belt in the middleweight bracket. This is a 4-man bracket. It's going to take place in November in Las Vegas, the same venue and weekend as the Masters World Championships. And the only other man that we know so far for this division is Tynan Dalpra. So, very interesting that they're balancing out. Tynan Dalpra was the first name confirmed. Obviously, he is a rookie black belt. This is his first year competing in the black belt divisions. Whereas Bayens is I believe, a 2-time IBJJF world champion. One time.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. Yeah, 1-time IBJJF world champion in the middleweight division. But that's a big difference, right? You've got an established veteran now and one of the brightest prospects.
Right. Well, we talked a little bit about how formidable these divisions are going to be, right? Knowing that it's the IBJJF GP and knowing the caliber of athlete those GPs typically bring, we know that the number 1 pound for pound is in the heavyweight division, right? So it makes sense that Isaac is going to be in this division up against guys like Tynan and 2 others. Isaac, by the way, has not lost a match this year. He's been undefeated this year, looking phenomenal on every circuit except for IBJJF. He's been a little bit abroad recently.
And he's been competing both gi and no gi, which I find quite interesting as well. But, credentials-wise, let's not forget that, he is a 2-time IBJJF European champion. He is a Pan champion and a world champion. So, yeah, I think that you should definitely consider Isaac Bayens as one of the front runners. However, it's going to be a 4-man bracket. I don't know who else they're going to invite, but I have a feeling if this is the caliber, then they're going to be. It's going to be a competitive bracket. Should we say that?
Absolutely, and there are a ton of names at middleweight that I think could really round this out and make it anybody's ballgame.
Oh yeah, loaded division. Felipe Pena is confirmed as one of the participants in the heavyweight bracket, and hopefully we should get some more names about that coming up soon. Cool. So a little other news announcement that just came up last week that was, let's say it as it is, unexpected, was the news that Lucas Hoscher is actually splitting from ZR team to basically set up his own kind of association. So Lucas Hoscher, a little bit of background, he is a well-established black belt. He's a third-degree black belt. He's been competing on the world scene for the longest time, but he's actually related. He is the nephew of the ZR team founder, Zehagiola, and obviously close family ties with him. So Zehagiola was one of the main figures in the Gracie Barra organization for many years, and of course Lucas was actually a coach at the original Gracie Barra HQ in Irvine, California. In 2016, the ZR team split away from Gracie Barra, and Lucas Hoscher went with his uncle and formed part of the new association. Still has pretty friendly ties with such notable figures from Gracie Barra, such as Otavio Souza, who he used to coach with at the HQ years ago. But it seems that this year that a family dispute was actually responsible for Lucas Hoscher splitting away from ZR team and forming his own association called Logic Jiu-Jitsu. And we spoke to Lucas. We got a little background as to exactly what it was that caused the problem. It was saying there was some family issues, also compounded with a disagreement in business practices as to how the association was being run. And when we asked him for a quote, he just said that he believes that jiu-jitsu is changing and evolving, and now more than ever it is necessary to work even more professionally, not only on the mats but also off the mats. He said that he wishes all of the ZR team members nothing but the best, but it was time for him to move on. So there we have it. So developing story, and right now no other big names from the ZR team will be leaving, just Lucas Hoscher currently, but if we find out then we'll let you know. All right, well, so that's the update on the breaking news. Let's get into the events from the weekend, right?
Yeah, why don't we start off with the event that happened just last night?
BJJ Bet?
BJJ Bet.
It feels like just seconds ago that I was sat right here at this desk, calling the action, sat next to Shanji Hibiro when we were commentating on all the action from BJJ Bet. And all eyes, of course, were on Lucas Hulk Barboza, the champion in the middleweight Grand Prix bracket, right?
And deservedly so. Hulk has had a phenomenal year, but if there's been one criticism of his performance, that is that he hasn't been able to finish many of his matches. He definitely shut up the critics here.
He definitely came out to prove a point yesterday, right? And out of his 3 matches, he actually submitted 2 of his opponents, including Leandro Lowe in the final, which you'll see a clip of that in a minute. But we're playing some highlights right now of Lucas's performance yesterday at BJJ Bet. This was his opening match against Servio Tullio. Servio qualified for this bracket by winning the Copa Kins and entered and going a very tough draw, going up against possibly the number 1 seed Lucas Hulk Barboza. But man, Barboza's body lock passing was on point, right? He was just bulldozing through people's guards, getting to the back, and it's interesting that Servio was the only one who was able to avoid being submitted.
That's right, yeah, and Servio actually had his back taken for maybe several minutes in that match. But,
yes, he did.
But kept his neck buried and just kind of minded his neck, and was the only one, like you said, able to get away without a choke.
One thing that stands out for me, and you saw it there, is that there's anytime anybody, and I'm talking about Servio, I'm talking about Leandro Lowe, anytime they tried shooting in on Lucas Hulk Barboza, it was like running into a brick wall. And it's amazing that Hulk, you shoot into him and he doesn't budge. He doesn't take a back step.
And it really doesn't even look like he's sprawling very hard. You know, he just kind of staying there and absorbing the energy of the shot, and in some opportunities countering it, which, you know, it makes him very hard to wrestle with, and he knows it. You know, as we'll talk about in the final, he knows how hard he is to wrestle with, and he comes out aggressively when he knows he's got the advantage there.
Yeah, I mean, Hulk, so, you know, he can take his opponents down. He has very good wrestling, and you'll see some of that in display in a second. His base and his balance from top position is excellent. I mean, Mauricio Oliveira, he beat Mika Galvao in the opening round in what many people were considering an upset, but for those of you who know Mauricio Oliveira, know how dangerous he is. But man, he definitely was throwing everything he had from the guard at Hulk, but Hulk was just so solid, and then He gets into this passing position, he puts on the squeeze, and he just, as I said, just bulldozes over and through the guard, right?
And he somehow manages to get his body lock under their lower back without really asking them to move very much. Typically, to get a body lock, they have to set up for you and give you a place to get your hands. He just slides his hands under there. And once he's got that body lock, he can do whatever he wants. You know, you see him pass to one side, pass to the other side, knee cut. You see him lift his opponents off the mat and take their back.
Yeah.
He has so many options there, and he's very, very skilled, very technical with every one of them.
This was the finishing sequence, and it was really impressive the way that, and you called this, about how he gets the arm triangle choke position, and the moment that he drops off to the side, the guy's already tapping. It's incredible. It's usually a bit of a squeeze, right?
Right. Typically, it's a really a slow burn technique. You got to sit there and get the angle and bury in and force the choke. Here, I don't know what he does differently, but it looks like it's just
that's Hulk power.
Panic tap,
yeah.
Right.
But this was interesting because, you know, Leandro, this is the final, Leandro Low, man, Leandro was fired up, and Hulk made it a little bit of a scrap, and this came out, huge statement, throwing Leandro to the mat, and I feel like he got inside Leandro's head, because Leandro, you know, he's usually the one dictating the pace of the match, and Hulk was like, you're playing my game. You're the guy coming into the no-gi arena for the first time in 4 years. I'm the one who runs shit around here. And we saw some great moments. The wrestling moves here from Hulk, the way that he was able to catch Leandro's shot. And then this is the sequence that was the end. You can see there that Leandro lands heavily on his head and on his shoulder. And I still don't know, but I really feel like that stunned Leandro, because from this moment, Leandro, man, I mean, he tried defending the back, but he didn't even really defend the choke. And Hulk went for it once, just adjusted it a little, got it in again, and it was done. That was his second submission of the night.
Yeah, I'm no knockout expert, but by the way he's placing his hands on the mat, it does seem like he's maybe not all there. But going back to just the beginning of the match here, good on Hulk for getting into Leandro's head, because we talk so much about how good Leandro is at showing up and finding a way to win, right? A good way to maybe overcome that is to rattle him, which is exactly what Hulk did at the beginning, and certainly paid off. It
did a very impressive performance from Lucas Holt Barboza, and you know, I went through the kind of the stats just to, you know, last night to kind of find out a little bit about Hulk's game, because he has faced some really severe criticism on social media. And I got to say, I feel like this is all instigated by Gordon Ryan, because Gordon is ruthless in constantly going after Hulk and saying, you don't know any jiu-jitsu techniques, you can't finish anybody. And, you know, you run the numbers and it's not very flattering. That is the truth, is that Barboza's record, he had 27 wins combined in 2021 to present. 2020 through to present in 2021. And 27 wins, he only finished 6 matches by submission. That's only 22% finishing rate. That's not good. Of his 11 wins in 2021, he only scored 1 submission this year up until this tournament. That was a measly, a meager 9% finishing rate. That's, again, not particularly impressive. But by going out yesterday and winning 2 matches by submission, now he has in effect doubled his finishing rate this year. So now he's had 14 matches in 2021, wins, I should say, 14 matches, 14 wins, and his submission wins, he basically now has gone up to almost 22% finishing rate. So, you know, it just goes to show that Hulk is versatile in the way that he's able to finish. But I think he's often so strategic in the way that he's playing to win that the submission is not always the focus, it's a consequence. If it's there, he'll take it, but he's primarily concerned with winning first and foremost.
Right. And even when he doesn't win by submission, when he wins, he still wins dominantly.
Very dominantly, yeah.
So there is, I'm sure, an element of strategy that goes into, well, you know, why would I go for the submission when I can win 34-0?
Currently ranked number 5 in the 205-pound division. It'll be interesting to see how that performance affects things, but also there's plenty of time through till the rest of the year, you know, and Hulk's been very active. He is one of the most active competitors out there, full stop. So I'm sure he'll be competing a lot between now and the end of the year. I fully expect to see him in No-Gi Worlds. I'd be surprised if he doesn't, but let's see how it goes. Another big winner at BJJ Bet was also Mateus Gabriel. So the 2019 black belt featherweight world champion, Mateus Gabriel. This was his first time competing on Brazilian soil since 2015.
Unbelievable.
Since he was a blue belt. Can you believe it?
No. But I mean, he looked great. He looked like he had definitely found his way home, and really good to see him coming out this aggressively and with this hungry for a submission.
Yeah, this was so phenomenal for me. This was really impressive technique because Mateus Gabriel, man, he has great jiu-jitsu. He does things just, I don't know how he does it, man, but really, his technique is so sharp, and he really loves to finish his opponents. But the Berimbolo into a triangle attack, literally, how did that even happen? I have no idea. And it goes to show how tough his opponent, Luan Carvalho, was in being able to escape from that position. And I was really impressed with Mateus's guard. You know, he was doing such a good job of inverting and getting underneath Luan. The first time he went for the triangle. The second time he used it to come on top. But I got to say, I was nervous. I was nervous when they ended up in the 50-50 guard, because usually what happens is that kind of kills the momentum in a match, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially when somebody has the lead. No matter which athlete has an advantage on points, 50-50 tends to be the moment where that lead is kind of not so much punctuated, but fizzled out, right? They just kind of, they get their points, and somehow we end up in 50-50, and now the match is just going to slowly burn out.
But
not so much.
Look at this, because this is the first attempt that Mateus Gabriel was hunting for the armbar from the 50-50. Luan Carvalho slips it out. But what I was really surprised about was that Mateus Gabriel, he went for it again, and the second time he was able to get the finish. And I think it's so cool, because the 50-50 armbar is one of those techniques where you catch it once and then you show it to the guy what you're looking for. You're not going to get it again. Mateus, he did. He managed to get the finish the second time. You
know, this is something the checkmate guys particularly do really well, though. I remember Jackson, the guy, has a couple of wins by 50-50 armbar. And it just seems that they have a trick here, and sometimes it's not necessarily, it appears to be kind of a gotcha move, right? But if you have the technique right, it works every time.
Have you ever been tapped out with 50-50 armbar, Corey?
I believe you may have caught me with 50-50 armbar.
Oh, man. Set you up for that. I love the 50-50 armbar. I got to say, I love this technique. And, you know, I really learned it by watching Hudson Mateus competing, and because he does it so well. And I love seeing it applied, because I hate the 50-50 guard that much. That's why it's better when somebody submits you from in the 50-50 with an armbar. It just is so much more satisfying to see. I love it. I really love it. But Mateus Gabriel, man, that was some homecoming, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great way to come out to his home audience, and you could tell that they were real appreciative of that performance. I think everybody was to see Mateus come out with that technical aggression. Yeah,
love it. A little disappointing performance, though, that we have to highlight. Strange performance, I got to say. This is one of the weirdest matches that we've seen for a long time. Was Nicholas Marigali against Hidazuchi. So this is we're not even going to run a highlight of this, because there's not really a lot to show. The match kind of didn't really show much. That Marigali, he came in, fired up. He had his hair dyed like a platinum blonde. And, you know, he'd been talking a big game ahead of his match with Felipe Pena. Felipe Pena pulled out about a week ago with a torn pec. And they managed to get Hida as the last-minute replacement. And he's a really tough guy and a training partner of Leandro Lo. But Marigali just didn't look present, right? He didn't really look like he was all there and fully focused and motivated for this match.
Yeah, and it was really disappointing, because watching the way that Marigali was preparing and discussing his preparation on social media, and knowing kind of the slide he's been taking over the last couple of years, I was really excited to see the return of the Marigali we all know and love to watch.
I mean, he was definitely he was sending all the right signals, right? He was saying like, oh, you know, I'm gonna like bring back my old friend, meaning you know, sort of like the crazy Marigali who had won those world titles. You know, he was going to a place that he hadn't been for a long time, and he was promising a return to form. And the truth is that we haven't seen that Marigali since 2019. And since then, whatever the issues are that he has, preventing him from competing like he used to. And the truth is that the Marigali that we saw last night is a pretty pale it's a mere shadow of what he was in the past.
And you know what it reminds me of is that actually the last person that Meregali beat was Herbert Santos at Spider, and it actually reminds the match last night particularly kind of seemed like the shoe was on the other foot. That last match, Herbert kind of tapped out due to he got kicked in the head or something, and they were bickering for a little bit, and then Herbert just quit. And this kind of seemed. Meregali still won. He stayed in the match, but it seemed very much the same to me that he had kind of given up. He was more interested in talking, and I don't know.
There was something like obviously bothering him, and it's really strange because we have no idea what it was. But Meregali was like visibly frustrated in that match. Right. He was like talking to his opponent. They were like exchanging words. He was just like throwing his hands down and rolling his eyes mid-match. You could see that he was distracted, and whatever it was getting to him. He was talking to somebody off to the side, and who knows what. But I've always said that Meregali is a very psychological competitor, and that he has to be in the right frame of mind to achieve those high level performances like he has in the past. And if that isn't quite dialed in, then I don't know. Maybe this is what the real Meregali looks like. But it's a shame. He already said though, he came onto Instagram this morning, and he didn't make any apologies for his performance, but he did hint at some issues maybe that affected him. And just saying here that what I've been through in the past few years, I wouldn't wish on even my worst enemies. So who knows exactly what that means, but there's something going on here. There's something going on with Meregali, and it's a shame because we love watching that guy compete, but can't say much more than that.
Right.
A really cool match, a really exciting match to watch actually was the women's match, the black belt match between Tayane Porfirio and Gabi Pesanya, which was a pretty interesting and crazy match with a lot of action that ended 2-0, but didn't feel like a 2-0 match, right?
No, it was really back and forth. It looked like, I mean, if you asked me next month to tell you what the score was, I could have told you 12-10.
Yeah.
Right? There was a lot of action. Interesting to note too, it was only Gabi Pesanya's second loss in her last 34 matches.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's been on a tear, but I don't think she's run into a world champion up until yet.
And a multiple-time world champion in that, obviously Tayane Porfirio, she did have a number of results suspended, or a number of results disqualified after she popped for banned substances at a doping test at the 2018 World Championships. But her world titles from the previous year, from 2017, stand. And Tayane is currently serving her suspension, the USADA issued suspension, 4-year suspension, so she won't be eligible to compete at the IBJJF World Championships for at least another year. I don't think she'll be able to go back until the 2023 World Championships, depending on exactly when those happen in the calendar. But she's still a world-class black belt. And interesting to note as well that she'd lost over 50 pounds. And her jiu-jitsu, she looked great. She looked really good. She was put in some tough spots, but she stayed calm. And Pesanya, for me, was always the one that I felt had the best shot of beating Tayane. And it was a pretty even match in many respects, that Tayane was able to survive some bad spots, to reverse position and to get on the attack. But, Gabi put it on her, and I feel like, this rivalry could continue.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that Tayane would have won that 10 times out of 10, right? Gabi had a couple of good opportunities to score, and it came down, I believe, to just like a strategic error where she got scored on. I think she got a little too aggressive and ended up giving up position. And once Tayane is on top, it doesn't matter if she's down, down 50 pounds or back at her normal weight. She's very difficult to sweep.
Yeah. I mean, Tayane's jiu-jitsu is legit, and the criticism usually of heavyweights is that the jiu-jitsu is less technical, but I did not see anything like that in this match. I gotta say, I saw some really nice technique that was definitely a lot to learn from there. Moving on. So BJJ Bet was a great event, but we have more events coming up soon. We have the very cool Emerald City Invitational going down this weekend here, August 7th, live on FloGrappling, and we are very lucky in being able to exclusively reveal the 145-pound 16-man bracket for this no-gi tournament. Now, this is an EBI rules tournament, and you can see that it is absolutely loaded with talent. You have guys such as Kennedy Maciel, Gianni Grippo, both no-gi world champions. You have IBJJF Pan champion Gabriel. I get mistaken. I'm sorry. No, you have representatives from the world of EBI and combat jiu-jitsu. You have 10th Planet soldiers. You have, typical IBJJF kind of points fighters. You have a little bit of everything. I really, really enjoy this. You've got a potential semi-final on the left-hand side of the bracket, which we actually saw last weekend, and we'll see potentially again coming up this weekend. We'll get into that a little bit later. But Kennedy Maciel and Josh Cisneros, they had 2 matches already this year. The most recent last weekend, and it was incredible. We'll play a highlight of that in just a minute. But they're both on this bracket. They could meet again. But just look at some of the names: Kennedy Maciel, Luis Quinones, Esteban Martinez, Josh Cisneros, Frank Rosenthal, Gianni Grippo, Keith Krikorian, Gabriel Souza, Richard Alarcon. Man, this is a loaded bracket.
Yeah, I absolutely can't wait for this event. I'm super stoked for it. And the last time Emerald City had a tournament, it was the 170-pound bracket that PJ Barish walked away with 4 submissions. Anybody on this bracket, especially maybe the favorites, could walk away with 4 submissions. No questions asked. 10 of these guys are in the top 10 in their respective weights. I could watch Kennedy and Josh Cisneros every weekend.
Yeah, I was running the kind of just looking at the schedule and stuff, and realistically, they fought twice already this year on Fight to Win. They could potentially fight this weekend on Emerald City. They're in the same division in Who's Number One Championships in September. Who knows? They could end up in the same division. No-gi Worlds. They could potentially fight 5-6 times this year alone. Right. It's possible. It's possible. But this Emerald City bracket is really, really cool. You can see the full thing on our website. The event goes down this weekend. I'm going to be there. You're going to be there. I'm super excited for it. I do believe that there might be a last-minute change. Just pull that bracket up one more time, Kyle, if you don't mind. But I do believe that Elias Anderson may be out, and they are looking for a replacement. So the bracket is set, though. So whoever does slide in
will be taking on Gianni Grippo.
That's a tough test. We'll be taking on Gianni Grippo, but man, you get invited for an event like this. I don't think that that should be a concern. You should be prepared to face anybody. Right. I particularly looking forward to the first round matches, which excite me the most. Luis Quinones of 10th Planet up against Esteban Martinez of ZR Team. That is a really fun match. Luis, of course, competed for us on Who's Number One not too long ago, and Esteban has been killing it on the IBJJF scene. He's a roosterweight, and one of the smallest competitors that you watch competing in the IBJJF men's black belt divisions, and yet always mixing it up in the absolute.
The Giant Slayer, and he's won a couple absolute matches. He doesn't go in there and lose. He goes in there for the kill, and he's a submission hunter.
I love it. Another first round match I'm really excited for is Frank Rosenthal versus David Weintraub. So Frank is he's a kind of a member of that Renzo Gracie team, kind of like floating around. He's always been training alongside like the Danaher Death Squad guys as well. But Weintraub is a combat jiu-jitsu veteran and super scrappy. We've seen him compete on Fight to Win. We've seen him compete in various tournaments, but he's fearless, right?
Scrappy is a word for it. I believe he has a couple knockout wins on combat jiu-jitsu, and even when he's not throwing slaps, he fights like he's looking for a knockout.
I love it. Also, you got I really like this first round match as well. Damian Anderson versus Richard Alarcon.
Such a good match.
This is a great match. This is a really, really cool match. Damian Anderson, again, Who's Number One veteran, a purple belt, Danaher Death Squad, although apparently that name has been retired, so he is a Danaher student, let's just call it that. But he was part of the glory days of the Danaher Death Squad, and Anderson is taking on Richard Alarcon. Richard Alarcon competes. He's a black belt, I believe, under Giva Santana from One Jiu-Jitsu in California, and Alarcon, great wrestling background. Again, combat jiu-jitsu veteran.
ADCC veteran. He beat Gianni Grippo.
ADCC veteran. Yep. Man, he is super tough, Richard Alarcon, and I think Damian and him are going to go head-to-head. Looking forward to a scrappy one there.
Really excited for the return of Keith Krikorian as well. He kind of took a little bit of a hiatus. He returned last weekend. I think he had a match at Sug.
He did. He won by submission at Submission Underground. Yeah, right. But I love seeing Keith Krikorian now representing Studio 84 in New Jersey. And he's got Suraj Budram of Fight Sports in the first round as well. So, man, this bracket is a lot of fun. Can't wait. Going to be there. It's in Atlantic City this weekend. And really, really exciting lineup. Cool. So we mentioned it briefly there about Fight to Win last weekend. Let's move on and talk a little bit about the results and recap. Because Josh Cisneros and Kennedy Maciel, man, what an incredible rivalry this has developed into. So, just setting the stage. Earlier this year, Fight to Win 169 in Dallas, Texas, Kennedy Maciel was able to get a come-from-behind win against Josh Cisneros in the main event of that match, of that event. And, man, Josh Cisneros was clearly winning that match. He had Kennedy in a deep triangle. He had him there for about 7 or 8 minutes. And how Kennedy escaped, I have no idea. But he did. He was able to pour on the pressure, get the rear naked choke in the last second. It was a match of the year contender. It was a submission of the year contender. If we had a category, it would absolutely be a comeback of the year contender. But they ran it back. They ran it back this weekend. Fight to Win 179 in Phoenix, Arizona. Let's play the highlight reel because we've got this here and we can talk about it, Corey. Because Cisneros and Kennedy, man, they did not disappoint. And if you thought the first match was good, this one was just as good.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that kind of kept me on the edge of my seat this whole match is one thing Kennedy has become famous for, and I think especially after their first matches, he has the ability to come back from any position with any time remaining and get a submission. So the fact that he was able to take the lead on Josh here, I thought, okay, he's got this in the bag.
Yeah, he had Josh Cisneros on the run earlier in this match, whereas the first encounter is the other way around, right? The first encounter, Cisneros was in control early and was able to catch Kennedy in the triangle, and Kennedy had to escape and get the submission. In this match, Kennedy was the one to gain the first dominant position, and he had this crucifix against Cisneros. He had him there for a while. Cisneros escapes from that deep position and then goes on the hunt and catches first, I believe, a Kimura attack, and then gets a triangle later as well. You'll see it coming up. But he had Kennedy sort of just dead to rights, stuck in those positions. But I think learned something from their first encounter and didn't let go of the submissions this time.
Exactly. And the one thing, he continued to chain submissions, but he was building on existing submissions rather than letting go of one and trying to catch another, because all Kennedy needs is 5 seconds and an inch of space to flip the switch entirely.
That position, actually, the way that he kind of sat into that position there from the top, very reminiscent of Mateus Gabriel's black hole.
That's exactly right. And Mateus Gabriel broke Kennedy's arm with that black hole back at, I believe it was Worlds 2019.
Wow, yeah, that's true.
So,
Pants
right.
2019, that's correct.
But
yeah.
one way or the other, it looks like it may be a hole in the armor of Kennedy Maciel.
True, but you can see him cranking that Kimura, and then he kind of, he goes to the triangle from there. It just goes to show how tough Kennedy Maciel is, because that Kimura was nasty. There were some strange moments in this match, though, I gotta say. The whole thing, we edited it out, but there was a moment where a member of the crowd jumped onto the mat and pushed the combatants back off the edge of the mat, which to me just really took something away from this match. It was absurd, should never happen. The referee should be the one in control, and allowing somebody else to get involved like that was ridiculous. But don't want to take anything away from Cisneros' win. It was a really powerful performance, and now they are 1-1. And I would love to see them go again. Yeah,
Cisneros was absolutely fired up after this win, rightfully so. After losing a match that he had so much the edge on earlier this year, so a comeback victory, and like we've been talking about, we could see this match 3 or 4 more times this year.
Love to see it. I hope it happens. I'm really excited for it. It's one of those rivalries that we didn't know that we needed, but can't live without. So, also happening this last weekend was the Midwest Finishers. What is the Midwest Finishers?
So Midwest Finishers is affiliated with the Finishers Only, Finishers Open. It is in the Midwest, but it's an EBI tournament. EBI rules. This weekend's edition of the Midwest Finishers was a middleweight bracket, so 185 pounds.
A 16-man bracket, huh?
Exactly, 16-man bracket featuring some of the top black belts that have been on the scene recently, and a couple of very decorated brown belts. So we had, George Valladares, Jacob Couch, Alan Sanchez, and Bruno Matias. There it is.
Yeah.
There it is, Bruno Matias.
So a nice mix of teams represented. Bruno Matias, Gracie Baja, Renee Souza, 10th Planet, Jacob Couch, Pedigo submission fighting, Alan Sanchez, 10th Planet. But the overall winner was Samuel Barboza, and a little criticism over the way that it played out, apparently, Corey.
Yeah, Samuel Barboza played the rules very strategically. He kind of let himself get put in some bad positions and was a little bit inactive in the regulation period.
Whereas on the other hand, you had guys like Alan Sanchez and Jacob Couch going out there and submitting people and doing their best to finish these matches in regulation. Whereas it seems that Barboza was the opposite. He was actually hanging on until the EPI overtime rounds and basically just sort of just winning via the riding time.
Right, that's exactly right. Couch had 2 submissions. George had 2 submissions. Alan Sanchez had 2 submissions. Renee Souza had a really nice dead orchard that we'll see in a minute. But there's playing to finish, and then there's playing to win. It's kind of a shame to watch EBI rules in some instances where people, where competitors can kind of game the system and do enough to make it to overtime and then win in overtime. It kind of takes away from.
But I mean, that's nothing new.
Right,
and
right.
we knew that's a flaw, if anything, with EPI rules, and it's widely discussed. Is that the loophole, isn't it? That it's possible to basically win by doing very little jiu-jitsu. If you're able to survive that regulation period, and you can basically get through into the riding time, and you can win just by being awarded somebody's back or being awarded their arm, as opposed to having to fight for it. And as a bunch of these competitors were trying to do. And look at that transition there, the false reap into the leg attack, going high onto the triangle there. That's Alan Sanchez killing it, man. That's what a transition.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
And Alan Sanchez, I think, has been incredibly underrated this year. He's had a great year. He took second at Emerald City back in April.
So how long was that match? These are 10-minute matches?
Correct.
So wait, he has Bruno Macias on the run within the first minute and a half. Taps him out in less than 90 seconds.
He submitted Bruno in 90 seconds. That's right.
Wow.
And Bruno, by the way, is absolutely no joke. He's been having a killer year as well. But Alan Sanchez has been very underrated this year, and I think some of the matches in this event were just absolutely stellar.
Wow.
Some great submissions, including 2 submissions by Jacob Couch in under a minute. One of them was under 30 seconds.
Whoa! And then here's this is Jorge, and on the arm I can see, right? And man, I love it. I love seeing all these submissions. It's not just a leg lock shootout either, right? There's a little bit of everything going on. You got arm bars, triangles, chokes, and of course the leg locks as well. That's what we want to see, right?
Yeah,
we want to see a diverse array of submissions.
And we criticize the EBI rule format, but there's the beauty of the EBI rules format, is that there is no score in the regulation, and so it gives guys an opportunity to open up and take risks and really take a shot when they see a shot. So there's an upside and downside. Any rule format can be kind of gamified and played, but the people who play this rule format to put on a show really have kind of carte blanche to do so. Yeah,
it's amazing. I love the way that it plays out. Man, super excited to see kind of the up and coming talent coming through in the no-gi scene. Credit to finishers, Midwest finishers for putting on that tournament and giving these guys an opportunity to shine. It's really, really cool. All right, so upcoming events. Let's talk a little bit about what's on the calendar. Coming up this weekend is Fight to Win 180. And in the main event, Lovato Jr. versus Gabriel Arges. This is a no-gi match, and this is the kind of match that, to be honest, I did not expect, but I really like. A 2-time IBJJF world champion, Gabriel Arges, an ADCC veteran, going up against one of the most decorated, one of the greatest American competitors of all time, Rafael Lovato Jr. And man, this is a very interesting clash of styles, I would say, right?
It really is. Lovato's jiu-jitsu, as we say, as he says, is timeless, right? It's very kind of toned down. And Arges is kind of very creative, right? His jiu-jitsu styles, unpredictable and creative. And I want to say, too, that Lovato's been more active, believe it or not, than Argis has over the last couple of years.
Well, Argis hasn't competed yet this year, which is very interesting. Today is the 2nd of August, and this will be Argis' first match of 2021. That is a long layoff, whereas Lovato's been busy, man. He's been on Fight to Win, he's been on Who's Number One, he's been doing IBJJF. There's absolutely no shortage of opportunities to compete, and he's all over it. He loves competing, and there was a big question mark of what he would do after he retired from MMA, but he's just, he dove back into the world of grappling, of course, went back to his roots, and we love seeing that. But, if you look at Gabriel Arge's last couple of matches, it's kind of interesting to see. I want to say that his last, I'm looking at it, his last big win in ADC, in no-gi competition, was in the first round at ADCC. He did get he got a win back in 2019 in a no-gi match against Dante Leon, Fight to Win. And he won his opening round match at ADCC, then lost in the second round to Mateus Diniz. But I want to say that was his last no-gi match. I think he's only been competing in the gi since, and he only had 3 matches in all of 2020 as well. So it's definitely coming into this match after a long layoff. I wonder what kind of effect that'll have on him.
Right, and typically when you talk about a clash of generations this long, it's normally the more experienced, the veteran of the two that is coming off of longer layoff. So this is kind of turning it on its head a little bit. Yeah,
interesting to see how that will play out, but excited to see it. Also on that show, we got Johnny Tama versus Edwin Najmi in another no-gi match. That's going to be really exciting. I've got to say, I love watching Johnny Tama compete. He's a firecracker. He's always out there trying to take somebody's head off, and he'll go down fighting if it doesn't go his way. Edwin Najmi's kind of the same, to be honest. He's kill or be killed. He's a submission sniper and loves putting on a show. And it started coming back to the world to no-gi as well. He got a win on Submission Underground recently, winning in overtime. But this is an opportunity to test his skills against a gamer and no-gi world champion Johnny Tama.
And Johnny's been polishing up his leg locks as well. We got to see some of that at no-gi pans back a couple months ago. That he's really developing his game.
Yeah. Also on the show is a gi match between Kendall Rusing versus Rafaela Geddes, and that's featuring 2 of the best heavyweight women in the game as well. So lots to look forward to there. That goes down this weekend, August 6th. That's Friday night here on FloGrappling, and then we have. Rusing versus Geddes is a no-gi match as well. But yes, Friday night, Fight to Win 180, and then Saturday night, Emerald City Invitational, 16-man, 145-pound tournament. All that and more here on FloGrappling. We've got live events going on pretty much every weekend, right through till the end of the year, including in September, there's the Pan Championships. We've also, we've got the huge Who's Number One Championships. It's going to be the event of the year. Believe me when I say that. That goes down September 25th, 26th. The World No-Gi Championships in October, World Masters in November, the IBJJF Middleweight and Heavyweight Grand Prix in November, all this and much more. ADCC Trials, the full gamut. We'll see you next week for another episode of Grappling Bulletin. See you later.